The last thing my family ever agreed on was this: I needed to stop acting like I was special. They said it like a diagnosis, like something was wrong with me, like confidence was a disease I'd caught on my own. My name is Ilara Whitman, and this is the story of how my family erased me long before the world ever learned who I was. Before I go any further, if you've ever been dismissed, minimized, or quietly pushed out by the people who were supposed to protect you, tell me in the comments. Share this story with someone who disappeared without making noise. And watch until the end, because the moment they finally understand where I've been, it doesn't belong to them. It belongs to me. The night it happened, we were all sitting around the dining table. Table, same scratched wood. Same voices overlapping each other like mine never existed in the first place. My mother was picking at her food. My father was scrolling on his phone. My siblings were laughing about something I wasn't invited into. It was ordinary. That's what made it worse. I said something simple. I don't even remember exactly what. Something about an opportunity I was chasing. Something about leaving town. Something honest. My father didn't look up when he said it. "Why do you always talk like you're different from the rest of us?" I laughed at first. Reflex, defense mechanism. "I don't," I said. "I'm just saying what I want." That's when my sister leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, already tired of me. "You always do this, Alara. You act like you're special, like you're meant for something bigger." My mother sighed. Not angry. Worse. Disappointed. "You need to stop," she said. "It's embarrassing. Nobody likes someone who thinks they're above their family. Above them." I hadn't said that. I'd never said that. But it didn't matter. They had already decided who I was. "I don't think I'm above anyone," I said. My voice was steady, even though my chest was tight. "I just don't want this life." That's when my uncle laughed. A short, sharp sound. "See?" he said. "That's exactly what we're talking about. Always dramatic. Always acting like this place isn't good enough for you." The table went quiet. Not uncomfortable quiet. Satisfied quiet. Like they'd finally said the thing they'd been waiting to say. My father finally looked up. His eyes met mine for half a second. "Stop acting like you're special," he said. "You're not." Not shouted. Not cruel. Final. Something in me shut down right there. Not broke, not cracked. Closed. I nodded. I even smiled. I let them believe they'd won. "Okay," I said. "You're right." They relaxed instantly. Conversation moved on. Plates clinked. Laughter came back. Just not for me. They didn't notice that I stopped talking after that. They didn't notice that I stopped offering opinions. They didn't notice that I stopped correcting them when they got me wrong. Why would they? Silence from me felt natural to them. That was the last night I tried to belong. After that, I started disappearing in ways that didn't cause a scene. I stopped showing up early. Then I stopped staying late. Then I stopped coming at all. No announcement, no goodbye. Just absence layered on absence until there was nothing left to question. They didn't chase me. They didn't ask what changed. They didn't ask if I was okay. And that's how I knew the truth. They hadn't told me to stop acting special because they wanted me grounded. They told me because my becoming anything at all made them uncomfortable. So I did exactly what they asked. I stopped acting special. And then, I stopped showing up. I didn't leave in a dramatic way. There was no suitcase slammed shut, no tearful exit, no final speech where I told them exactly how much they'd hurt me. That would have required them to care. Instead, I vanished quietly, the way people do when they already know no one is counting. First, I stopped answering messages right away. I let hours pass, then days. When my mother texted, "Are you coming Sunday?" I didn't lie. I just didn't reply. When my sister sent a passive-aggressive, "Guess you're busy being special," I left it unread. Silence became my language. They noticed, but not the way you hope people notice. At the next family gathering, I heard later, someone asked where I was. My father shrugged. "She's doing her thing," he said. My uncle laughed. "She'll be back when reality hits." That was it. No concern, no follow-up. No one asked what my thing was. They just assumed it would fail. I stopped going to birthdays. Nobody called. I missed a holiday. They posted photos without me. I didn't show up for my mother's anniversary dinner. She told people I was busy with work. Busy. That word covered everything they didn't want to look at. The family group chat kept going without me. I stayed in it longer than I should have, watching jokes I wasn't tagged in. Plans made without asking, complaints about how people change when they think they're better than everyone else. I knew who they meant. They never said my name. Eventually, I left the chat. No announcement, no explanation, just gone. Nobody added me back. That's when it hit me. Not like heartbreak, but like clarity. I wasn't being punished for leaving. I was being rewarded. My absence made things easier for them, quieter, less threatening. I started to understand something brutal. They hadn't lost me. They'd already let me go. So I stopped hovering at the edges of their lives, waiting to be missed. I stopped checking social media to see if anyone noticed I was gone. I stopped hoping someone would say, "This isn't the same without Alara," because it was the same, maybe better. I moved through my days alone after that. Not lonely, alone. There's a difference. Lonely is wanting someone who doesn't want you back. Alone is choosing not to beg anymore. I rented a small place with thin walls and a window that faced nothing interesting. I worked long hours. I came home late. I ate standing up. Some nights I didn't speak a single word out loud. My voice got used to being inside my head. Every once in a while I'd catch myself reaching for my phone, wanting to tell someone something. Good news? Bad news? Anything. And every time, the same thought stopped me. Why would they care now? The anger came later. At first there was just numbness, a dull, constant pressure behind my ribs. The kind you forget is there until you take a deep breath and realize you can't. I replayed that night at the table more times than I want to admit. The way they looked relieved when I agreed with them. The way the tension vanished the moment I made myself smaller. That memory followed me everywhere. I started understanding that the problem wasn't that I thought I was special. The problem was that I refused to believe I was nothing. And that made them nervous. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into a version of my life that didn't include them at all. I built routines they didn't interrupt, habits they didn't comment on, dreams I didn't share. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered if disappearing was a mistake, if maybe I should have fought harder, explained myself better, stayed. Then I remembered how easy it had been for them to let me go. That's when the doubt burned away. If my presence required permission, then my absence would be permanent. I didn't disappear to hurt them. I disappeared because staying was slowly erasing me, and once I understood that, there was no version of me that was ever going back. I didn't rebuild my life with speeches or vision boards or any of that public nonsense people like to perform when they want to be seen trying. I built it quietly, in fragments, in hours no one else witnessed. If my family had been watching, they wouldn't have recognized the process anyway. They only understood results, never effort. I took a job that didn't sound impressive when you said it out loud. The kind people nod at politely before changing the subject. The kind that lets you disappear behind a title that means nothing until it suddenly means everything. That was perfect for me. My days started early and ended late. I learned to speak only when necessary, to listen longer than was comfortable. to take notes while everyone else talked. People always underestimate the quiet one. I let them. I needed them to. There were meetings where my ideas were ignored until someone else repeated them louder. I didn't correct it. I just watched who noticed. There were nights I stayed hours after everyone left, not because anyone asked me to, but because I needed to understand things completely. Half knowledge had never protected me before. I failed more times than I'll ever say out loud. Projects that went nowhere, pitches that died mid-sentence, rejections delivered with polite smiles that felt sharper than insults. Every time, I thought about my family, about how they would have nodded knowingly and said, "See? We told you." That thought didn't break me. It focused me. I stopped telling anyone what I was working toward. Friends asked. Coworkers guessed. Strangers made assumptions. I let all of it happen. The less people knew, the less they could interfere. I learned early that visibility is a privilege and access is dangerous. There were moments when I almost reached out. When something went right and the instinct to share flared up before I could stop it. I'd imagine my mother's voice on the other end of the line, trying to sound supportive but already adjusting the story so she could insert herself into it later. I never dialed. Instead, I collected small wins like contraband, a signed document, a nod from someone who mattered, an invitation to a room I hadn't been allowed in before. None of it dramatic, none of it shareable, all of it mine. People started trusting me with more responsibility, not because I demanded it, but because I never wasted it. I noticed things others missed, patterns, gaps, weaknesses disguised as confidence. I understood systems because I'd grown up in one that pretended to be supportive while quietly limiting me. That kind of education stays with you. Every once in a while, I'd hear something about my family through mutual connections. They still talked about me like I was a phase they'd outgrown. Alara, someone told me they'd said. She's still figuring herself out. Still. As if I were stuck somewhere behind them, running in place. I didn't correct that either. The truth was, my life was expanding in ways they wouldn't have approved of. I worked with people from places they'd never visited. I made decisions they would have called reckless. I learned to sit across from power without flinching. I stopped asking for reassurance. I stopped needing permission. By the time anyone thought to check in, I was already unreachable. The message came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was halfway through something that actually mattered. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. "This is Mara from Northline Media," the voicemail said. "We're producing a local feature called Self-Made Leaders from Our Town. Your name came up more than once. We'd love to talk." I listened to it twice, then a third time. Self-made. The phrase felt strange, heavy, like a label that didn't belong to anyone who had to disappear in order to become real. I didn't call back right away. I sat there, staring at my phone, thinking about the table, the voices, the way they'd told me to stop acting like I was special. They hadn't been watching while I built this life. They hadn't been invited. And for the first time, I realized something that made my pulse slow and steady instead of racing. If I said yes, they wouldn't hear it from me. They'd see it. On a screen. Without context. Without access. Without a single chance to rewrite the story. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just finally understood the timing, and I let the phone ring the next time they called. I didn't return the call that day. Or the next. I needed to be sure this wasn't about recognition. Recognition fades. What lasts is control. And I hadn't protected mine this carefully just to hand it over to a camera crew that wanted a clean narrative. They called again on Friday. "Hi, Alara, it's Mara. I don't know if you got my message, but we're finalizing our segment lineup. We'd really like to include you." Her voice was calm, professional, curious. not desperate. That's what made me listen. I asked the first question that mattered. Who told you about me? There was a pause. Papers shifting. Several people, she said, but none of them are family. That decided it. We met in a studio that smelled like coffee and equipment that had seen better days. Nothing glamorous, just lights, cables, and a folding chair placed exactly where they wanted me. I noticed everything: the angle of the camera, the distance between me and the interviewer, the way they adjusted the lighting until my face looked composed but not soft. Mara sat across from me, notebook in her lap. Before we start, she said, you should know, this isn't a feel-good piece. I looked at her. Good, I said. Neither am I. She didn't flinch. The first question was predictable. Tell us about where you're from. I didn't name the town right away. I talked about silence, about growing up in rooms where ambition made people uncomfortable, about learning early when to stop explaining yourself. My voice didn't shake. I'd already lived the worst parts. This was just documentation. Did your family support you? She asked. There it was. Clean. Direct. No way around it. I kept my eyes on the lens. They didn't stop me, I said. But they didn't come with me either. Mara waited. Let the space do the work. Was that hard? I thought about the table, the laughter, the word special used like an insult. Hard would have been staying, I said. They didn't ask for names. They didn't need them. Every answer landed exactly where it was supposed to. Controlled. Measured. Sharp enough to cut without spilling anything unnecessary. Between takes, a producer handed me water. You're very composed, he said. I had a lot of practice not reacting, I replied. We talked about my work next. Not in detail. Impact, not mechanics. Growth without spectacle. Progress without permission. The kind of success that doesn't photograph well but changes rooms when you walk into them. At the end, Mara closed her notebook. This will air next Thursday, she said. Prime slot, local segment but strong reach. I nodded. Do you need anything else from me? She hesitated. One more thing, she said. Is there anyone you want to thank? I didn't answer right away. No, I said finally. Just make sure my title is accurate. She smiled. Not kindly, respectfully. When I walked out of the studio, the sun felt too bright. My phone buzzed with notifications that had nothing to do with the interview. Work, deadlines, real life continuing, unchanged. I didn't post about it. I didn't tell friends. I didn't warn anyone. That night, I passed my family's street on the way home. I hadn't planned to. Muscle memory did it for me. The house looked the same. Lights on. Curtains half drawn. Familiar in a way that no longer reached me. I imagined them sitting on the couch next Thursday. The TV on. The segment starting without warning. No build-up, no context. Just my face on a screen they never expected me to occupy. They wouldn't hear it from me. They wouldn't get to prepare. They wouldn't get to claim they knew all along. And for the first time since I disappeared, I felt something close to satisfaction, not because I was about to be seen, but because they were about to watch. From the outside, I wasn't there when it aired. I didn't sit in front of a screen counting down the seconds. I didn't gather friends or pour a drink or pretend this was some kind of victory lap. That would have made it about me needing to be seen. This wasn't that. Thursday night, I was still at work. Same desk, same quiet. My phone was face down beside me, vibrating every few minutes like it was trying to warn me about something I'd already set in motion. I didn't touch it. Across town, without knowing it yet, my family was doing what they always did on Thursdays. Dinner finished, dishes half washed, television on for background noise more than interest. The segment came on between weather and sports. No announcement. No build-up. Self-made leaders from our town. My name appeared on the screen. There was a pause. Not long. Just long enough. My mother leaned forward. Is that... My sister squinted. No way. The camera cut to my face. Calm. Unapologetic. Nothing like the version they kept stored in their heads. The one who was dramatic. The one who needed grounding. The one who thought she was special. My father didn't speak. He just stared. They watched in silence as I talked about leaving without burning bridges, about building something without applause, about learning when absence was safer than explanation. Every sentence landed with weight because none of it asked for their approval. My uncle laughed once. Instinct. Habit. Then he stopped. They heard my title. Twice. Once when it appeared under my name. Once when the interviewer repeated it. They replayed that part later. Not because they were proud, but because they needed to be sure. This can't be recent, my sister said. My mother shook her head slowly. Why didn't she tell us? That question moved through the room like smoke. Not grief, not concern. Confusion mixed with offense, as if I'd violated an unspoken rule by becoming something without asking permission first. They watched the rest of it standing now. No one sat back down. When it ended, the room didn't fill back up with noise. It stayed quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't know what to do with itself. My phone lit up for the first time while I was packing my bag to leave work. Unknown number. I knew who it was anyway. Why didn't you tell us? The message read. No greeting? No. Are you okay? No, we're proud. Just confusion that felt a lot like entitlement. Another message followed. We would have supported you. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Would you? Would you have supported the late nights you mocked? The risks you warned me against? The silence you mistook for arrogance? I didn't reply. Across town, they were already rewriting it. Calling relatives. Explaining the gap like it was a misunderstanding instead of a decision. She likes privacy, my mother said. She's always been independent, my father added. We didn't want to push her, my sister finished. They were careful not to say we didn't believe in her. More messages came in as I drove home. Missed calls, voicemails I didn't open. Each one carried the same unspoken demand. Come back. Explain yourself. Let us in. But the screen had already done what I never could. It showed them a version of me they had no control over. A story they weren't part of. A success that didn't trace back to them. When I finally got home, I set my phone on the counter and let it buzz itself quiet. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt finished. They had seen where I'd been. They just hadn't been invited. And now, for the first time, they understood exactly how far away I was. Not in distance, but in reach. The tone changed the next morning. Overnight, confusion hardened into confidence. By sunrise, they weren't asking anymore, they were claiming. My mother left a voicemail. I didn't play it right away. I already knew how it would sound. Careful, warm, slightly performative, the voice she used when she wanted something to feel like reconciliation instead of control. When I finally listened, I was right. We're so proud of you, she said. Your father and I always knew you'd find your way. We just didn't realize how far you'd gone. Always knew. That phrase landed heavier than any insult they'd ever thrown at me. My sister texted next. Everyone's been calling. You should come by. People want to see you. See me, not talk, not understand. See. Then my uncle, the boldest one. You should have told us. Family supports family. Don't act like we weren't there for you. There it was. The rewrite. The version where my silence was the problem. Where my disappearance was an offense instead of a response. By noon, They'd decided I owed them a conversation. My father called. I answered, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to hear how far they were willing to go. Alara, he said. My name sounded unfamiliar in his mouth. Why didn't you tell us what you were doing? I didn't soften my voice. You never asked. That's not fair, he said quickly. You pulled away. I smiled to myself. You told me to stop acting special. I listened. Silence. Then, that's not what we meant. It's what you said. He cleared his throat. We just didn't want you to get hurt. I almost laughed. Hurt by what? I asked. Trying? He didn't answer that. They asked me to come over that evening. Said it was important. Said we needed to clear the air. I agreed, even though I already knew there was nothing to clear. I wanted to see it in person. The moment they realized access was no longer automatic. The house smelled the same. Food already on the table. Like they were hosting, not confronting. Everyone was there. Smiles ready. Arms half open. My mother moved first. We've missed you, she said, like it was a shared misunderstanding. I sat down but didn't lean in. You didn't look for me. My sister frowned. You disappeared. No, I said. I stopped showing up where I wasn't wanted. My uncle scoffed. That's dramatic. I turned to him. So was telling me I wasn't special. You just called it honesty. The room tightened. My father tried to take control. We're happy for you, he said. But this distance, it doesn't make sense anymore. You've proven yourself. Proven. As if that had been the requirement all along. I didn't build my life to earn my way back in, I said. I built it so I wouldn't need to. My mother's smile faltered. You're punishing us. I shook my head. I'm protecting myself. That's when my sister said it. The line they always go to when they're losing ground. You really just left us. I looked around the table, at the faces that had watched me agree to disappear. No, I said calmly. You erased me first. I just made it permanent. Nobody spoke after that. I stood up. No rush. No shaking hands. I'm glad you saw the interview, I said. Now you know where I've been. As I walked out, my phone buzzed again. Messages. Calls. Apologies layered with justifications. I didn't block them. I didn't need to. Because the version of me they were trying to reach no longer existed. And this time, I wasn't disappearing quietly. After that night, they didn't stop trying. They just got more careful about how they tried. My mother sent articles, interviews about family bonds, thinly veiled reminders disguised as concern. Saw this and thought of you. My father left messages that started formal and ended uncertain, like he was negotiating with someone he no longer understood. We should talk again, he'd say. There's no reason for things to be like this. There was every reason. He just didn't like the outcome. My sister tagged me in photos from gatherings I didn't attend. Public gestures meant to suggest closeness that no longer existed. Every notification was an attempt to reopen a door they hadn't noticed was locked from the inside. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, not because I wanted them to suffer, but because responding would have meant explaining myself again. And I was done explaining a life they'd only decided mattered once it was visible. The town changed its tone fast. People who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly remembered my name. Old teachers, neighbors, friends of friends. They congratulated me in grocery store aisles, on sidewalks, in places that used to feel small. You've gone so far, they said. I nodded. They had no idea how literal that was. Another interview request came in 2 weeks later. Regional this time. Bigger reach. Different stakes. I accepted without hesitation, not because I needed more exposure, but because I no longer needed to hide. The morning of the shoot, I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, not fixing anything, just looking. The woman staring back at me wasn't hardened. She wasn't bitter. She was precise, measured, completely aware of her own edges. My phone buzzed again. Family group chat. Recreated. New name. We're proud of you. I exited it without a word. At the studio, the producer asked if there was anything I wanted to avoid. Any topic that was off limits. Yes, I said. My family. He nodded immediately. When the camera rolled, I spoke clearly. About work, about choices, about silence as a strategy. I didn't mention where I came from. I didn't need to. My presence answered that question better than any explanation ever could. That night, alone in my apartment, I turned the TV on by accident. A rerun of the local segment played quietly in the background. My face on the screen again. Still. Controlled. Unavailable. I watched for a moment. Not to admire it. To confirm something. They could see me. They just couldn't reach me. I turned the TV off. Some people think disappearing is a phase. That distance is temporary. That family eventually pulls you back no matter how far you go. They're wrong. Sometimes, disappearing is the most permanent decision you'll ever make. They told me to stop acting like I was special. So I did. I stopped asking to be understood. I stopped offering access. I stopped shrinking so they could stay comfortable. And somewhere along the way, without announcing it, without permission, I became exactly what they said I wasn't. Unreachable.